Welcome back. It's hard to believe the Texans have had such an incredible turnaround in just one season, but you can thank C.J. Stroud for that. The rookie has led game-winning drives in the final 2 minutes of the contest in back-to-back weeks, and now that hope is translating because Houston has a shot at making the postseason. Taking a peek at the current AFC Playoff Picture, that wild card column, looking pretty interesting heading into Week 11. You see Houston with the head-to-head edge over the Bengals. But this is the way things are shaking out as of now in the AFC, Chris.
Who would have had the Bengals and the Bills out at this point in the season? Over in the NFC, the Vikings in great playoff position. A 74% chance to make the playoffs after winning again without Justin Jefferson and Kirk Cousins. They're 5-0 without Jefferson. They're 2-0 with Josh Dobbs as the starter. Another great performance as the Vikings continue to just overcome. They're in that last wild card spot at 6-4, but they have a game-and-a-half cushion and a pretty soft schedule, which gives them a good chance to make it. Look at the dip in the middle part of this season. Thought they had no chance back in Week 5, Week 6, Week 7, below 20%. Now all the way up, pushing 80%. Right now, all teams in playoff position in the NFC have a 65% chance or better to make it. So it looks like right now we have our teams in the NFC, unless there's a big shift. Do you see any team coming from outside the playoff picture right now who could get in?
I don't. I think the Vikings have earned the right to be there by playing great defense. Yeah, Josh Dobbs is a great story, but Brian Flores is a better story. They went and got Brian Flores to amp up a defense that was terrible. And it was all cover two, all off coverage, and now they get tacked and go after the quarterback. I love Brian Flores as defensive coordinator. By the way, I think he's going to be a head coach again in the NFL. I think the defense is the biggest difference, and they can win games that way, and they will be a playoff team.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of another team you could make a really strong case for.
Really,
I don't know if there is.
The Bucs are the closest, I guess, because they're a game out in the division or a half game out in the division. They could maybe catch the Saints, but it doesn't seem likely at this point. At least that's what the Sportsline simulations say.
Yeah, and there's some really bad teams in the NFC as well. And like a lot of the schedules, we were talking about the Vikings. Their schedule sets up nicely. The Saints, their schedule sets up nicely. I was wrong. He's looking at me.
No,
he wants to bring up that game. He wants to bring up that game where I picked the Saints to win.
No,
you're right.
I want to give you credit because I know you love Kirk Cousins. If Kirk Cousins was on the field for the Minnesota Vikings the rest of the year, they'd be a viable Super Bowl contender.
Because the defense is that good?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
And getting even better.
Do you think they can catch the Lions in the division?
No, I don't.
Yeah, the Lions look good.
Yeah, well, not on defense they didn't, but but I think they're going to get within a couple games or stay within a couple games because I think their schedule's favorable but the Lions' schedule is also favorable.
The Commanders were a team I thought about. They had a rough one this weekend. By the way, as much as we're talking about Sam Howell, did you see, C.J. Stroud? Sam Howell's actually leading the NFL in yardage. Yeah. He's making a really strong case to be the franchise quarterback for that organization, making it tough on them to see what they decide to do in the draft.
Yeah, as someone who worked in Dallas last year, I remember Sam Howell all too well in that Week 18 matchup against the Cowboys, but we're going to push past that. Let's switch over to the AFC, though, guys, because
now we can have some fun.
Best stories in the NFL has been this Texans team. They've really exceeded all expectations. They now have a 22% chance of making the postseason for the first time since 2019. You got a young guy in your franchise quarterback in C.J. Stroud. DK, are you drinking the water that is in Houston?
Absolutely, I am. I want to see if Pete's drinking it with me.
Danny, you've been drunk on that water.
Maybe a little too drunk. It's been phenomenal. I mean, he has blown me away. I did not expect C.J. Stroud. I thought he would have, I thought he'd have a nice career. I liked him as the number 2 overall pick. I didn't think he should be 1, and he's making the Carolina Panthers look like they have a ton of regret with this one. But for him to be doing what he's doing and really putting this team on his back, and I do want to make sure we give DeMeco Ryans a tremendous amount of credit because him as the head coach, saw the scene in the locker room. He's created a culture of belief, and they're buying into what he's doing, and it starts with the quarterback. He's been phenomenal. I mean, back-to-back, you mentioned Haley off the top, back-to-back game-winning drives, the first time by a rookie. We've seen that in 40 years. He's making big-time throws, and I thought the most impressive thing in Cincinnati was not the overall stat line, but it looked like he threw an interception that was going to cost them the game, right? He throws the pick, Burrow drives down. It's like, oh, what are you going to do now? All he does is drive him right the length of the field and wins the game for him. He's resilient. He's got confidence. It blows me away.
If they win in Houston against Jacksonville in 2 weeks, they will win the division. Period.
This, though, coming from Pete, who picked the Jaguars to go to the Super Bowl.
And here's why. Their schedule is so favorable, and Jacksonville's is not. Jacksonville plays Tennessee this week, then they go to Houston. They have Cincinnati and Baltimore at home and a road game at Cleveland. It's a brutal slate, whereas the Texans have a much easier slate. So if they win that game, and history says Jacksonville struggles against the Texans no matter how good they are and how bad the Texans are, that's a tough game. The winner of that game will win the division. If the Texans win that game, they win the division. I don't want to say that loudly sitting next to Danny Kanell because I know Jacksonville came after him last week. Don't come after me. I'll say it on Monday night.
You know what, though? That's the beauty of the NFL. It's by design. I mean, Jacksonville's a playoff team last year. Their schedule's going to be harder. If Texans, one of the worst teams last year, they get the benefit of the scheduling. And it's genius because we always see in the division a worst to first, some team that has this massive turnaround, and it's built this way. And credit to the Texans for taking advantage of it.
How about you see the numbers there? The Bengals just a 45% chance to make the playoffs after this loss. You still think they're going to be able to make their way in, Pete?
They better win this week. This week against the Ravens is an enormous game for the Bengals, more so than the Ravens. And they're facing almost an elimination type game. When you look at the way that division is stacked up a little bit, Pittsburgh might fall off a little bit, and they play them next week. So the next couple weeks are going to decide that division.
That division is wild right now. I mean, you have the Bengals losing that game. You have the Browns stunning the Ravens, and the Steelers continuing to be outgained and still winning football games. How do you see this thing?
And the Steelers stunned the Ravens, let's not forget, in a game the Ravens had no business losing. I mean, it's crazy.
Do you trust the Steelers?
No.
I don't either, but they keep defying the odds.
I trust Mike Tomlin. I don't trust the Steelers. I trust Mike. The reason they're the way they are right now is because of Mike Tomlin. The reason they are 6-3 is because of Mike Tomlin.
Right. I was worried about Kenny Pickett, the consistency, but if they run it the way they did with Jaylen Warren and Najee Harris, I mean, he doesn't have to do that much. He just has to keep handing off, almost like Ben Roethlisberger did younger in his career when he was handing off a lot, just being a game manager. That's the thing with Kenny Pickett. He just if he gets more consistent and can just hit the easy throws and not make the big mistake, they might be that team. You mentioned the Browns. I mean, Deshaun Watson, that's the best we've seen him since 2020 in the second half. Perfect 14-14, leads him from behind. That was phenomenal.
You thought he was going to be a playoff team. I thought they were going to be a playoff team, and they legitimately are a playoff team if he plays like that. And I think they could be even better, win some games in the postseason if he plays like that.
All right. Well, I'm looking over into the distance here. Got my binoculars on, and I feel like I can see a graveyard over there potentially.
Wow.
And we just also happen to have this little shovel. Even though it's not Thanksgiving, Pete, we heard that your graveyard is coming up.
Oh, you're going to dig a hole for
We've talked about the teams that are going to be in the postseason, so let's do a little switcheroo.
I think this shovel comes from like 1918 or something.
It's definitely a little rusty. It's definitely got some nails, so be careful with it. But Pete, looking ahead, who are some teams who have absolutely no shot? They are buried. Their season is done.
You got to hold
see them next year.
Well, I mean,
you got to hold it. I had to pick it up and deliver it.
Well, I mean, by the way, I don't want to be like in Goodfellas where I have to go back and dig up the body. And I don't think that's a problem with these teams. If you look at the teams I'm burying, the Cardinals. Look, Kyler Murray, nice story coming back. You're not getting out from underneath that. You got the Patriots. Do they make a coaching change? Because they're dead and done and Mac Jones can't play a lick. The Panthers, Bryce Young's been a disaster. The offense stinks. And then you have the Tennessee Titans. Will Levis is in. The rest of the year is about him. He's taking so many shots. He's getting brutalized. 37 times he was hit. 37. Think about that. They're even talking about whether they can protect him at all. That's an issue. So all four of those teams, they're buried. And Danny, I don't want to have to get you up in the middle of the night to go dig up one of these bodies because we have to put it in a different spot.
Did you guys see the Bills tailgate last night? They were grilling on a shovel. Bills Mafia was out. They had it on the heat. And then they had some burgers on a shovel. I had never seen that.
Do not touch that again. You just saw the concrete from the 19. They built the biggest building in the world with that stuff.
That's right.
Shovel.
It's got nails coming out of it.
Yes, there's tetanus crawling all over it.